combine them. It has to do with campaign reform. The member of the audience wants to know who your major contributors are and what influence they have on you. And in a more generic sense, it's how would you reform campaign financing? Do you support the recent Citizens United decision, which allows unlimited corporate financing with no transparency? How do you feel about the fact that less than 50 people in America have contributed to these super PACs that are doing all these contributions? So we're talking about billions of dollars that less than 50 people in America have financed 80% of. How long of a period do you feel the election process should be? Right now it seems to be all year round. And would you support public financing of elections on the federal, state, and city? So I know that's a mouthful, and I know it'll be tough to do it in 2 minutes, but I got confidence in you.
First, I want to say that none of us are guilty in participating in a long campaign season, because I think this is the shortest campaign any of us have ever run. I'm proud to say that 50% of my contributions have been made from homeowners and from New York State. I would support an act that did not make it, but I would support the measure formerly called the Fair Elections Act. And this is basically to support campaign financing and also to say that a certain percentage of your donations have to come from people within your potential congressional district. I oppose the Citizens United decision. I think it's horrible. I think it's basically a huge loophole and a huge way that people have gotten around the rules of basically allowing corporations to make donations to candidates, which they are not allowed to do. But essentially, because of that decision, basically says that corporations are people and that they're allowed to donate as much as they want to a candidate.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Midman, since we're down at this end of the table, maybe you'd like to follow through?
Yes. Once again, I am, just like you, a resident. I practice in Bayside. I was born in Bayside. I don't have the people such as the fat cats, the political bosses, the lobbyists, the special interests funding me at all. It's all $50, $20, $100. It's 100% people like you, because they believe in my story. My story is one of listening to people for 20 years, telling me they lost their job, they own a shop, they closed it down, they lost their health insurance. It's you, it's not me. My thoughts are your thoughts. I don't understand why the people in Washington can't get it right. My patients all know. They all have the same story. Every one of you, do you really feel that we're going in the right direction? Look at these decisions they're making. I'm not a politician. I never ran before. I did this because people kept on saying to me, my patients kept on saying, why don't you run? Why don't you run? Because I kept on listening to their stories and I feel bad about it. And I said, you know what? For once, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to try to do something about it. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you, sir. So why don't we continue moving down to this end of the table. Mr. Lansman, would you share your thoughts with us on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The enormous influence of money in our political process is profoundly corrosive. The amount of time that individual candidates have to spend raising money to run for Congress, or even state assembly, or state senate, or local office, is every minute that we do that, we're taking time away from meeting with voters and talking about issues that matter. Beyond that, while I'm sure that nobody up here would be influenced by the campaign donations that they accept from this industry or that special interest, it's been known to happen out there in the world, and it's something we should be very concerned about. When the Supreme Court came down with the Citizens United decision, I was one of the first people in the state to talk about it. I wrote an article in the New York Law Journal explaining it from a legal perspective, but most importantly, because I take being a legislator very, very seriously, I introduced legislation in the Assembly, which was also introduced in the Senate, which would have limited the impact of the Citizens United decision by giving shareholders more power over how corporations can contribute what is essentially shareholders' money. But in the Assembly, I've been one of the leading advocates for campaign finance reform. I've been a co-sponsor of all the legislation that we passed in the Assembly that would reform our campaign finance system, make disclosure more transparent and easier and readily available, and support public matching funds like we have as a city council. And that's the kind of energy and vision that I want to take to Congress, because as bad as it might be in New York State, it's even worse in Congress, and it's only going to get worse. Just wait until President Obama, who I support, and Governor Romney each spend $1 billion running for president, much of it raised from corporate and wealthy interests who do not have our interests at heart. It's one of the most important issues that I hope to be able to address in Congress the way that I've worked on it in the Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for devoted fine people. Doing a great job. Mr. Cho, and then Ms. Crowley.
I too am against the Citizens United case to state that this corporation can be a human being, to state that this corporation then can give unlimited amount of money, not even have to reveal where the sources of funding come from. And as mentioned earlier, then what you have is the cream of the crop, the 1%, the 0.01%, deciding, well, which candidates, what issues we're going to support. Already, Washington is clogged with lobbyists, and the corporation seems to have control of many of our politicians. So I would, if elected, be in favor of campaign finance reform. Number one thing, public finance of elections. Just think, if the TVs, the newspapers are mandated to have a section where they go into campaign, our issues, our photo, our biography, so that, you wouldn't have to be, well, I have to raise so much money because I have to take out a big ad. I have to raise so much money that I have to take out a TV ad. I have to raise so much money, so you take the money element out of it, so you don't have to worry about, well, how do we limit people that want to donate and influence politicians? But, well, we take the money out of it. Public financing, and then we want to make changes to this office. Number one, let's term limit the congressional, right? Once you have term limits, it's not a job for life. I'm a healthcare worker, if elected, I'm only allowed to have 4-year leave of absence, and then I have to go back to do my assignment on tax. So you have term limits, then, as stated earlier, you give up my Cadillac health plan, I will give up the pension plan, I would want to cast my fate with the American people. What's good for the American people has to be good for the politician. I would say Congress and state legislators cannot give themselves a raise. It gets to a point where I don't want to say congressmen are going to become the 1%. I would hope that the agenda, the feeling of the position of a congressperson is a representative of the people, for the people, by the people. And for me, I would hope the people would be the 99% of us, the everyday people, the working class, the small business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, so Ms. Crowley, would you like to finish off this segment, please?
Sure, and I'll try to be brief. I supported the denounced Citizens United. I support a more fair election policy. In the New York City Council, we have the Campaign Finance Board, which helps candidates who aren't independently wealthy or aren't able to raise from, as Dr. Littman said earlier, fat cats or political bosses. I've certainly not taken money from those types of sources or corporations. Most of the donations that my campaign has received are smaller donations from people who live in and around the district, mostly in Queens. I've also been endorsed by some unions, including the firefighters who've made contributions, Local 3, which is an electricians union. I've been supported by the Policemen's Benevolence Association. They've donated as well, and family members. And those are the people who are supporting my candidacy, people who live in and around the district, and people who I believe should have a voice in Washington as well. Thank you.
Very good. Well, we've been doing this for about